Good morning to all of you. I welcomes to all in our lecture series on nanomaterials and applications. That is your DSc paper. Belongs to 6th semester BSc syllabus. In our last class, last 2-3 classes, we have been completed these synthesis methods. That is your top-down approach, all the synthesis method, and bottom-up approach, all the synthesis methods. In detail, we have been discussed. From today class we are going to be start to discuss characterization techniques. These are your characterization techniques inside your syllabus. X-ray diffraction, optical microscopy, scanning electron microscopy, transmission electron microscopy, atomic force microscopy, scanning tunneling microscopy. So except XRD, these 5 microscopy has been used to determine the surface morphology or surface topography of the sample. So what is the geometry of the sample nearby the surface? So this is one of the example. You can see SEM, scanning electron microscopy image. Here you can find large number of grains in this much area. Large number of grains are there. So inside the grains we can found the crystallites. That means lattice in the different orientations. These are the lattice having the different size also, maybe more or less different sizes crystallites we can found inside the grain. And the size of the crystallite, what is the structure of the crystallite, that we can determine by using the X-ray diffraction, whatever we are going to be discuss in detail in our today class. Okay, so let's start. So before we have to start the X-ray diffraction, here I want to suggest one thing, that in your E-beam evaporation we need somewhat correction, a simple correction. That in the first lecture I told that B will be inward direction, but in the second lecture you can refer the synthesis method part 2. I told that it will be not inward direction, it should be outward direction. Okay, it should be outward direction. How it will be outward direction I explained in detail, so you can follow that video. But here mistakenly I told that the outward direction will be the positive sign, but actually the outward sign of the magnetic field will be dot enclosed by the circle. So inward direction of the magnetic field is represented by cross, but in that lecture I corrected how it will be outward, but mistakenly symbol I given wrongly as positive symbol, positive sign, but it will not the positive, it will be like this, dot enclosed by a circle. That means magnetic field along outward direction. Okay, you just correct it, this is your corrected figure. Okay, so this symbol is represents magnetic field towards outward, normal to the this plane of this screen, but outward direction. Okay, now we are going to go for the X-ray diffraction. So before we are going to discuss about X-ray diffraction, here I just somewhat discussed about production of X-ray. Actually production of X-ray is not inside your course syllabus, BSc syllabus, but you just go through this and just remember how it has to be produced. Okay, no need to write these things in your note, but you just go through this. Okay, so here you can see that the all range of the all different ranges of electromagnetic waves having different wavelengths. So visible light or visible electromagnetic wave in between this range. So if we are going to move towards the higher frequency, then we can found the X-ray having the wavelength, sorry, having the frequencies, having the wavelength in between this much. That means here you can see that if we are going to move this side up and up, then the wavelength has been decreased or the so-called frequency increased, the energy of the electromagnetic wave has been increased, right? So this side, if I am going to move towards the radio wave, and its wavelength has been increased. So this is the X-ray wavelength, which is varies from 10 nanometer to 0.1 nanometer. This is the X-ray wavelength. So how it has been produced, and high energy itself. If I am going to compare visible light and X-ray, X-ray has the high energy. Only for that, in your you can if you gone to anywhere in your medical or some lab, there it has been written that X-ray, but X-ray will be there, and you have to precaution about that. So how it has been produced? Here the heated tungsten filament has been used. Heated tungsten filament by giving high voltage around 30 to 40 kilovolt. Around 30 to 40 kilovolt voltage if I am going to give to a tungsten filament, then it will be eject the electron. It will eject the electrons. And these electrons having the high energy, and it is going to be bombarded on a target. This target may be your iron or copper. This target may be iron or copper. So what is going to happen? The high energy electron has been bombarded with the target. Target may be your iron or copper or any metal. Then what is going to happen? Here, when the high energy electron has been bombarded with target, or the metal, or metal means you can consider iron and copper, what is going to happen? Core electron, that is your K level electron, K, L, M, N energy levels are there. The core electron is going to be ejected. Core electron is going to be ejected. Okay, so here incident electron beam when bombarded with iron atom or target, you can say, the core electron of the iron has been ejected out. When the core electron ejected, the higher energy level electron is come down to its position. So when it will come down, whatever the energy it has to be eject to outside, that will be your X-ray, or that wavelength of this radiation will be in the range of X-ray, in the range of this this wavelength. Okay, so that means overall you just remember that if core electron will be disturbed, if core electron will be ejected, then X-ray can be produced. So may you can write these things whatever we discuss in shortly in your note. Draw this figure and this figure. Okay, and this X-ray whatever has been produced, this X-ray is going to be incident on the crystal structure or any material to characterize its structural information. So to extract structural information of an unknown crystal structure, we have to use these X-ray, what has been produced by this method. That high energy electron is going to be bombarded with the target of iron and copper. Core electron is going to be ejected of the copper and iron, and X-ray has been produced. This X-ray is going to be used to determine the crystal structure or crystal information or characterization of the crystal of a material. Okay, so how these X-ray which will be incident on a crystal lattice and it will give the crystal information, that we are going to be here, we have been discussed in shortly whatever inside your syllabus. Okay, so XID technique is an important tool for study of crystal structures and atomic spacing. XID is based on constructive interference of monochromatic X-ray on a crystalline sample. So the crystalline sample act as a 3D diffraction grating for X-ray wavelength similar to the spacing of the planes in the crystal lattice. So if we are going to consider a crystalline sample, so it will be act as a 3D diffraction grating. So this is your 2D diffraction grating. That means here space are there and here also space are there. So you can consider these are the planes, or you can consider these are the planes. Okay, so these are the lines. We know that the grating means the lines having the definite space. So here the lines or planes having the definite space, so this will be act as a grating. So if we are going to consider in 3D format of this lattice, we can get 3D diffraction grating. So when this incident wave is going to be diffract, if the wavelength will be comparatively space of this lattice, okay, the incident of the X-ray uh, crystal sample produced constructive interference if condition Bragg's law are to be satisfied. So X-ray wavelength similar to the spacing of the plane of the crystal. So if X-ray whatever is going to be incident, if it will be equivalent or nearer to the spacing between the two uh, planes, then the diffraction is going to be possible. And here you can see the atomic dimension is around angstrom level, and here X-ray is also in between 1 nanometer to 0.1 nanometer. So atomic dimension is if angstrom, then the spacing also more or less angstrom or in between nanometer range. So whatever the X-ray is going incidence here on this lattice, that wavelength also will be in the that 10 nanometer to 0.1 nanometer. So hence it will be diffracted, and diffraction is going to be constructive after diffraction. See, these are the incident X-ray and these are the diffracted X-ray, and after diffraction this will be detected by the detected by the detector. If the constructive interference is going to happens, then intensity will be more and it will be detected by the detector. So constructive interference can be happens if it will be satisfied, if the diffracted range after the lattice when the incident ray are going to be diffracted, the diffracted range if satisfies this condition 2d sin theta equal to n lambda, then the constructive interference is going to happens and it will be detected as a intensity or a detector. Okay, so here D is nothing but interplanar or lattice spacing. This one wavelength is your monochromatic X-ray beam. Theta is the, you can say, incident, or here 2 theta means also 2 theta by 2 also theta. So diffracted or scattered angle. Okay, so why it has to be diffract, how it has to be diffract. See, this incident plane wave is going to be diffracted not from this single atom. Actually these atoms, if I am going to consider collectively, it will be formed as a plane. Okay, these are the planes. So incident radiation reflected or diffracted from this plane. Okay, and it is going to be interfere constructively here and will be detected by the detector, right? If it will satisfy this law, then it will be constructive interference, right? So these are the planes whatever we can see in two dimensional planes. If we are going to consider 3 dimensions, then what will be the planes? The planes will be like this. Here I given an example that in a unit cell this type of planes can be possible. Here I shown 3 planes. These 3 planes have their own Miller indices HKL. Already we have been discussed in our last semester. So this type of planes can be possible. See, parallel, this is one plane. So with this plane, parallel planes can be possible. This yellow color plane will be there. So yellow color plane, and parallel to the yellow color plane other planes can be possible, like that. So here whatever it has been written that 3D the crystalline sample act as 3D diffraction grating, here is the picture that how a crystalline sample having different orientations planes means 3D gratings will be possible inside the crystalline material. So here it is the 2D format of the lattice structure or a single crystal light whatever I have been represented. So here this is one plane can be considered. These are the different planes. These are the one you can say along x-axis it is or horizontal planes you can say, or these are another planes, another orientation planes can be possible. So if we are going to consider 3D, then different orientations planes are to be possible, and from the plane when the incident wave is going to be diffracted, if it will be constructive interference, then it will be detected with a higher intensity. How it will be, that we are going to discuss. So here this is nothing but, if we are going to consider one grain, suppose one grain, if we are going to consider, inside the grain large number of crystallites or particles, means different orientations of arrangements of lattice can be possible inside the grain itself. So this is one orientation of the lattice, this is another orientation of lattice. So here see, here I considered all the crystallites are same size, but it will be more or less equal. Okay, so this is another orientation of the crystallite, this is another orientation of crystallite. So if crystallite size will be less than around 50 or 30 nanometer, then it will be called as the particle. Okay, at that time grain will be also called as the particle. That means, if just roughly you have to remember that if grain size will be less than that of the 50 nanometer, then we can get in the single grain a single crystallite will be possible. At that time we can say that this is the only particle, but here the crystallite also can be called as the particle. So single crystallite will be called as the particle. So single crystallite means inside the grain a particular orientations arrangement of atoms will be there. Here one another particular direction will be there. So inside this large number of crystallites will be present. Okay, if it will be ferromagnetic, then each and every crystallite will be act as one domain. Okay, if it will be ferroelectric material, so those things we are not going to discuss over here. So here you just concentrate that inside the grain large number of crystallites will be there. Large number of crystallite means this is the one plane will be there. So incoming X-ray is like this. So if it will be found these planes at a time, so a large diffraction or constructive interference is going to happen, and which will be detected by the detector. Here I have an animation, you can easily understand that this is your X-ray tube from which the X-ray incidents on a single crystallite. This is your single crystallite, but here it is written crystalline sample. So, okay, this will be a crystalline sample, means large number of planes will be there. So here incident X-ray, and this is your diffracted X-ray, and theta is the angle measure with this plane to incident line. Okay, and 2 theta is this angle. So here you can see that one animation is there. So this is your monochromatic X-ray is incidence on the sample having random crystals or random orientation crystallites inside a grain. So when the X-ray incidents, you can see that this detector is rotated, this detector or this instrument rotating like this. So at a particular angle it will get the higher peak, means it will get the your constructive interference. So intensity will be large, but other 2 theta value it could not be get the constructive interference. So if there is no constructive interference, so there is no intensity will be detected by the detector. So what is happening, carefully you have to observe here. So here detector is rotating, means this 2 theta value is changes. Okay, so here from the formula you can see that 2d sin theta, if 2 theta is going to be changed, so theta obviously is going to be changed. So when the detector is rotated, and you can see that the crystallites planes also is going to be rotated. So here you can see for this information, for this particular plane, for this particular peak, it founds a particular orientation of planes. See, this peak is tells about the intensity of diffraction, light which is detected by the detector. If the diffraction light have larger intensity, then we can get the larger peak. So this is your X-ray, diffracted X-ray intensity. Okay, along x-axis 2 theta, along y-axis diffracted X-ray intensity. How the diffracted X-ray intensity is going to give you the large intensity or peak? If they are going to be form the constructive interference. A constructive interference at that time it can be possible if it will be obey the Bragg's law, that is your 2t sin theta into lambda. So at a particular 2 theta you can see, at a particular 2 theta we found a peak. Again at a particular 2 theta you can see here, at a particular 2 theta we got a peak. That means constructive interference. Another particular 2 theta we got a peak. That means another particular 2 theta here we got constructive interference. That means at this angle we found a particular orientations of planes which is inside the grain. So at this point also, or at this angle also, we are going to get the particular orientations of the planes. So here you can carefully you can observe, see this, these planes has been detected. Again I am going to show you, wait, at this see, this planes has been detected. So at this particular angle these planes are detected. At this particular angle these planes are to be detected. See this blue color lines here at this angle, these lines. So here magnifying picture is there. At this angle this planes has been detected. So at this angle 2 theta this planes has been detected, these planes, okay, has been detected. That means from, I told that from the angle from here, for this 2 theta angle, here these planes has been detected, or you can say the diffraction happens from these planes, and happens constructive interference. But at angle of 2 theta here we found the diffraction from these planes, okay, from these planes, because if 2 theta rotates, the obviously the crystallite is going to be rotate. So at a particular 2 theta angle these planes has been responded, or you can say that the diffraction whatever happens from these planes, this one, these planes, we can get the constructive interference. So we can get the peaks. Okay, I think same thing it has been written. You just write down in your note. These diffracted X-ray from various planes are detected. So here you can see that okay, here you can add 2 and 3 lines that when the X-ray is going to be incident on the crystalline sample, it is going to be diffracted from the various planes. Or you can write from, start from here, that let the X-ray incident on the crystalline sample, and these diffracted and diffracted in various angles which was detected by the X-ray detector. Then you have to write from here, these diffracted X-rays from various planes are detected, processed and computed. After detection by the detector, it is going to be processed by the computer, processed and computed. All possible diffraction direction of crystallite can be attained by scanning of the sample through a range of angles 2 theta, whatever I have been discussed. The diffraction peaks are the information of different orientation of the planes. For the first peak, these orientation of the planes, and for the second peaks, these orientations of the planes has been detected. So the diffraction peaks are the information of different orientation of planes having different Miller indices, and the Miller indices of the planes has a direct relation with d-spacing of the planes. How it is that we are going to discuss. And the crystal can be identified by the conversion of the Miller indices of the diffraction peaks to d-spacing, because each type of crystal has set of unique spacing. So what is the relation? Here this is the relation, that d, suppose if we are going to consider the simple cubic structure. So here suppose we are going to consider different crystallite materials, that is your simple cubic, body center cubic, face center cubic. For simple cubic, all possible values of HKL are possible. That means all possible values of planes are going to be reflected. Okay, all possible values of HKL is going to be possible, but if simple cubic, suppose one crystallite sample we have been considered, and inside that that will be a simple cubic, so these planes are possible. That means the diffraction will be possible from these planes by considering, if we are going to consider simple harmonic. And this relation we found in our last semester when we discussed the topic geometrical structure factor part 2. So here I am going to give you the link of this topic, you can refer for this relation. Okay, about this you can refer this topic, that how we got these relations. Okay, so for body center cubic, if we are going to consider, then only even values of HKL is going to be possible, and these planes are going to be missing in your body center. In case of face center, these are the planes will be possible. That means only even value of H plus K plus L will be possible. All odd and even values of HKL will be possible for face center, but missing planes will be this one. These are the missing planes for the face center. This in detail we have been discussed in this topic. You can refer this video, I will give the link in the description, you can refer, no problem. So it is found that the ratio of H square K square plus L square value for allowed reflections from cubic crystals as obtained from extinction rules are given as for simple cubic it has to be 1:2:3:4:5:6:8. For body center cubic it has to be 1:2:3:4:5:6:7. For face center 3:8:11:16:19. Okay, so if we found the first we have to calculate the HKL values of simple cubic. So this one, the second HKL, possible HKL will be this one. So from the first HKL, what will be the value of H square, K square, L square? It will be 1. From the second one, we are going to get 2. So if the ratio, if the ratio will be this one, then we can say that this will be the simple cubic. And this H square, K square, L square is directly related with your D spacing. How it is? You can see that according to Bragg's law, 2D sin theta is your n lambda. For cubic crystal, if you are going to consider, for cubic crystal, DHKL is nothing but your A by H square, K square, L square root over, right? This is already we have been studied, and that implies here you just put in, instead of D, if we are going to put this one, then and we are going to consider square of both the side, then we can found sin square theta by this one, sin square theta by H square, K square, L square will be equal to, this will be lambda square, and this will be 4, and this will be A. So this will 2 means 4 square, if we are going to consider 2 means 4, A square will be here. And here you can see lambda of the incident X-ray is constant, and D spacing or for a cubic lattice constant will be A is also constant. So this side will be constant. So here you can found that this will be constant. That means sin square theta is directly proportional to H square, K square, L square. So here from the extinction rule we found this is the rule. This is the rule. So here you can see that for simple cubic, if follows this rule, then as this is the values are nothing but your H square, K square, L square. So sin square theta, as it is proportional to H square, K square, L square, also sin square theta will be follow this rule. So by considering sin square theta and its ratio, one can determine that the structure will be simple cubic or body center or face center. Here is the one example we are going to be considered here, that suppose we have this X-ray diffraction pattern we have. See, after doing the X-ray we can get this pattern. So we have a data like this. That means at around 38 degree one peak is there, at 2 theta one peak, around at 45 another peak is there, that is your reflection. This reflection means these are the information regarding plane, remember it. Okay, this is the peak, means this is one plane, this is one plane, this is another plane, like that. So here at 45 degree another peak is here, at around 66 degree another peak is there, and around at 78 degree 2 theta another peak is there. We consider only 4 peaks here. So what will be the structure if we got this information or we got this data? So how we are going to determine that what will the structure of this of the crystal whatever we have been investigated through XID? So how we are going to determine? So here is the procedure that if simple cubic, it has to follow that h square k square l square has to follow this ratio for BCC, this ratio for FCC, this ratio. So as sine square theta is proportional to this one, also sine square theta has to be follow this ratio for simple cubic, and for body center cubic sine square theta has to be follow this ratio. For face center cubic sine square theta has to be follow this ratio. That means here 2 theta value we got, where the peaks has been observed we found. So from 2 theta we determine theta, from theta we can determine the sine square theta. So now as h square k square l square has to follow this ratio, this sine square theta also has to follow the same ratio. Okay, so here you can see that I am going to show you that here you can see 1 by 2, 1 by 2 means 0.5, right? 1 by 2 means 0.5. So here sine square theta we are going to be consider by considering your calculator. Wait, see that 1 second. Okay, so here you can see that for if we are going to consider simple cubic, okay, for simple cubic 1 by 2, so 1 divided by 2, that means it has to give 0.5. So now we are going to consider 0.11 by 0.15. What will be the value? So 0.11 divided by 0.15, the value is 0.73. So it is not matched with simple cubic. The first one is not matched, means first ratio is not matched, means we are not going to be accept that this peaks belongs to peaks whatever observed in your XID pattern, it belongs to simple cubic. So simple cubic not to be possible. Likewise body center cubic also first ratio is 0.5, but it is given 0.7. So also body center cubic structure not to be acceptable. Now we are going to consider face center cubic. So here the first ratio is found, has to be found that 0.11 by 0.15 is your 0.7. So here 3.4 will be how much we have to check, just wait, that is 3 by 4 is 0.7. So again we are going to consider 4 by 8. Okay, 4 by 8, 4 by 8, that is your 0.5. Now here we are going to consider 0.15 by 0.3, that is also 0.5. Okay, 0.15 by 0.3 also 0.5. That means whatever the ratio we can found here by considering h square k square l square, here also by considering sine square theta we got the same ratio by considering FCC. Okay, in case of FCC, these are the ratio we found by considering possible HK value and HKL value and its corresponding h square plus l square plus k square plus l square. Okay, so I have to close it. So here what we concluded that if we are going to consider this XID pattern and its corresponding peaks corresponding 2 theta value, from that 2 theta value we got the sine square theta. So as from this relation we found that sin square theta is proportional to h square plus k square plus l square, and h square plus k square l square for simple cubic, body center cubic, face center cubic has to be follow this relation. So sin square theta also has to follow this relation. So here for this example we found that the ratio whatever we found for the face center cubic, it will be matched with this ratio. So 0.11 by 0.15 will be matched with 3 by 4. 4 by 8 will be will be not exactly but more or less it will be matched. 4 by 8 will be matched with 0.5 by 0.15 by 0.3, and here you can check 8 by 11 will be matched with more or less it will be match 0.03 by 0.4. So hence the pattern whatever we have here, this will be belongs to your face center cubic, face center cubic cubic lattice structure that we can confound. Okay, so here the same thing it has been written that as this is constant, in this way you can write the note. Okay, so which is constant, so hence sin square theta will be proportional to this one, hence sin square theta also follow the extinction rule. Here ratio of the sin square theta follows 3. Here ratio means for this example sin square theta follows 3:4:8:11. So therefore xid whatever here we have been considered, the peaks, xid peaks whatever we have been considered is belongs to FCC crystal structure. So in this way we can consider or we can determine the lattice structure from the xid pattern. So I think I am going to give you the PDF of this slide in the description. You can download and you can write the notes systematically. Okay, systematically. Just after this you just write consider example. You draw this figure and corresponding to theta value according to Bragg's law. These things you have to write, and the ratio of after this one you have to write this one, then this one. Okay, so this is the method that we have to use to determine the crystal structure from pattern, XID pattern whatever we can found after reflection. Okay, so here we considered, here we discussed about simple cubic. Other crystal structure in like this type of method has been used to determine. Okay, so what are the applications of the XID? To determine the crystalline phases, to determine the degree of crystallinity and structures of materials range from polymers to glass ceramic. That means also XID can be used to determine the crystalline or structure of the polymer or glass ceramic. Glass ceramic means very disorder lattice structures. Okay, or very less crystallinity ceramic if you have, from for that material also XID helps to determine the crystallinity. Okay, that actually for polymer and glass ceramic it has to be used the SAX, small angle X-ray diffraction. That is not inside your syllabus, but you just remember that XID also used to determine the structure for polymers and glass ceramics. Okay, and determine the crystallite size and lattice distortions due to impurity or microstrains. And the XID also can be determined the crystalline orientations. So these are the main applications that you have to write down in your note. And I told that PDF format of this note or the slide, whole slide I am going to be put in the description. I will give the link, you can download and you can write down the note. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you. And in our next class we are going to be discuss the characterization techniques of optical microscopy and SCM, scanning electron microscopy, and TEM, transmission electron microscopy. Okay, next class. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you.